The blood that wouldn't stop. A story about thickened endometrial lining. Zina knew her period was sometimes unpredictable. It could arrive early, show up late, or even skip a month. She had always brushed it off as just hormones. But lately, something strange started happening. She would bleed even when she wasn't on her period. At first, it was just a few spots on her underwear, light stains. She assumed it was just stress or maybe something she ate. Then it happened again and again. And each time, it lasted a little longer. This wasn't her period. It wasn't due. She wasn't ovulating either. She was just bleeding randomly, out of nowhere. What she didn't realize was that this is called bleeding between periods, when blood comes out of the body, even though you're not menstruating. It's not normal, and it's usually a sign that something's not right inside the womb. Then came her cousin's wedding. Zina wore a gorgeous white and gold dress that hugged her figure perfectly. Her makeup was flawless. She felt beautiful for the first time in weeks. The music filled the air. Guests laughed and plates clattered. She danced, smiled, and soaked in the joy of the moment. But just as the bride and groom were about to take their first dance, Zina felt something, a slow, warm trickle between her thighs. She froze. Maybe it's just sweat, she thought. But the feeling didn't stop. It grew warmer, heavier. Her heartbeat quickened. She shifted. Something wasn't right. She leaned toward her friend. "Please, I need to use the restroom. Now." Inside the bathroom, she lifted her dress and froze in horror. Bright red, her underwear was soaked. A fresh stain was spreading into her gown. Her hands shook. Her face went pale. This wasn't her period. It wasn't due. And yet, she was bleeding. Again. Without pain, without warning. She stood in that bathroom for over 30 minutes, trying to clean herself, stuffing tissue where she could. Her beautiful dress, ruined. She stepped out of the restroom, hoping to slip away quietly, but just a few steps into the hallway, she heard it. "Auntie, there's blood on your dress." It was a small boy, no older than 6, standing with wide eyes and a juice box in his hand. Heads turned. 3 women by the drinks table gasped. One pointed, another whispered something to her friend. A man near the speakers looked directly at her, then quickly looked away. Zina stood frozen. Her body felt hot. Her ears rang, and shame clung to her skin like the stain on her dress. Her friend rushed over, threw a shawl around her waist, and gently ushered her outside. Zina didn't go back to the hall. She quietly left the wedding that night with a sinking feeling in her chest. The next morning, Zina woke up with a heavy heart and stained underwear. Her white and gold dress, now ruined, lay crumpled in a corner, quietly mocking her. The shame from the wedding clung to her like a second skin. She couldn't pretend anymore. Something was wrong. She wrapped herself in a plain maxi gown and headed to the nearest women's clinic. The moment she stepped in, the air hit her, thick with heat, murmurs, crying babies, and the sharp scent of disinfectant. The waiting room was packed. Tired-looking women sat shoulder to shoulder. Some clutched babies, others clutched pain. Zina moved slowly to the front desk. "Please," she said softly, "I'm bleeding, and it's not my period. I need to see a doctor." The nurse didn't even glance up. "Take a number. Sit. Wait. You'll be called." Zina looked down. Her paper read, "Number 39. The screen above blinked. "Now attending. Number 19. She sighed and found a seat near the edge of the row. The cramps were back, and the bleeding still going. She pressed her legs together, trying to keep still. Time crawled. The noise around her grew louder. Her dress felt damp. Her eyes darted around. Then she turned to the woman sitting next to her and whispered, "Do you know where I can buy a sanitary pad? Just one?" The woman pointed just outside the entrance. "There's a small pharmacy in the next compound." Zina nodded, clutching her bag, and walked out slowly. She bought a small pack, cleaned herself up in the restroom, and returned. 8 minutes, that's all it took. But when she sat down again and looked at the screen, it read, number 41. Her stomach dropped. She marched to the nurse's desk. "Excuse me, I'm number 39. You skipped me. I was just out to buy a pad. I've been here for hours." The nurse didn't look moved. "You weren't here when we called you. We called you 3 times. Next time, don't leave your seat." "But I'm bleeding." Zina's voice cracked. "I just needed to..." "Madam, please step aside. Next." The nurse waved her off like a nuisance. Zina's lips trembled. Her eyes blurred. She felt humiliated, invisible, alone. "I've been here since morning," she whispered. "I'm bleeding through my clothes." Her voice grew louder. "I can't wait again. Please. I don't feel okay. I'm not okay. She couldn't finish. She broke. Right there at the nurse's desk, Zina began to cry. Not small tears, loud, exhausted sobs that filled the room and turned heads. Another nurse peeked from the doctor's hallway. "Let her in," she said quietly. In the consulting room, Zina wiped her face with shaky hands. The doctor was calm, kind-eyed. "Tell me what's going on," he said. She told him everything. The wedding, the random bleeding, the heaviness in her stomach, the exhaustion. He listened, then gently said, "Let's start with a pelvic scan. We need to see what's going on inside." Another wait, another hallway. The scan room was cold, quiet. As the technician glided the probe across her lower belly, Zina stared at the ceiling. "The lining of your womb is quite thick," he said after a moment. "More than it should be." Back in the doctor's office, the explanation came. "Your womb grows a soft inner lining every month called the endometrium. That's what comes out during your period. But in your case, the lining is too thick. It's not shedding properly, it's just building up." He called it endometrial hyperplasia. It's usually caused by a hormonal imbalance, especially too much estrogen. It can lead to irregular bleeding like you've been having. We'll need to take a sample, a biopsy, to be sure it's not something more serious. Zina sat still. Her tears were dry now, but her heart was pounding. She wasn't just tired, she was scared. But finally, she was being taken seriously. The biopsy was scheduled for the next day. Zina barely slept. She Googled more than she should have. Words like hyperplasia, womb lining cancer, and estrogen imbalance. The more she read, the more terrified she became. What if it's something serious? What if I waited too long? At the hospital the next morning, she sat quietly as the nurse explained the procedure. It would only take a few minutes. A small sample taken from her womb lining and sent to the lab. It wasn't painful, but it was uncomfortable and deeply emotional. As she lay on the exam table, staring at the ceiling, she felt like her body had betrayed her. But another part of her, the stronger part, whispered, "You're doing the right thing. You're finally facing it." Then came the wait. 5 days. 5 long, silent days. Zina tried to keep herself busy. She drank tea. She watched shows. She avoided every call that began with, "How are you feeling?" But on the 5th morning, her phone rang, the hospital. She held her breath the entire ride there. The doctor welcomed her with a calm smile. He didn't rush. "We've reviewed your results," he said gently. "It's simple hyperplasia, non-cancerous. You caught it early." Zina exhaled for the first time in days. He explained that while the condition wasn't dangerous now, if left untreated, it could develop into something more serious over time. The good news is, we can treat it with medication. You'll take a course of progesterone therapy to balance your hormones and thin the lining. We'll monitor you with follow-up scans over the next few months. Zina nodded. Her voice shook as she whispered, "Thank you. I thought I was going crazy." That night, sitting alone in her room, Zina opened her journal and wrote, "I didn't listen to my body for months. I laughed off the signs. But bleeding between periods is not normal. Heavy tiredness isn't always stress. Craving ice and feeling dizzy isn't just random. You don't have to collapse before you ask for help. Please, if something feels wrong, don't wait." She closed the journal and smiled softly. It wasn't over. She still had months of follow-up ahead. She'd have to make lifestyle changes, stick to her meds, and keep an eye on her cycle. But for the first time in a long time, she felt in control. Enlarged endometrial lining, hyperplasia, is treatable if you act early. Don't ignore unusual bleeding, fatigue, bloating, or changes in your body. Listen to your body. Speak up. Your health is your power.